Hey guys, welcome back. Today we've got something absolutely insane. What if Naruto was trained by Monkey D. Garp? This concept is broken. Garp throws cannonballs for training, punches through mountains, and makes admirals sweat. Now imagine that applied to Naruto: unlimited chakra, healing factor, and the nine tails. We're talking about a Naruto who could punch through jutsu with bare hands. In this 8-chapter epic, Naruto goes from village outcast to unstoppable force, defeating Zabuza through pure martial arts, making Orochimaru retreat, and converting enemies through overwhelming strength and philosophy. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell. Let's dive in. The Fist of Love arrives. The autumn wind carried the scent of burning leaves through the streets of Konohagakure, but 6-year-old Uzumaki Naruto couldn't appreciate such simple pleasures. Not when he was running for his life. "Get back here, demon brat!" The angry shouts of the villagers echoed behind him as his small legs pumped desperately, bare feet slapping against the cobblestones. His bright orange jacket, the only clean clothes he owned, was already torn from catching on a fence during his escape from the marketplace. It had started like any other day. Naruto had tried to buy some instant ramen with the meager allowance the third Hokage provided, only to be met with the usual glares and inflated prices. But today had been different. Today, one of the shop owners had snapped completely. 70 years that monster has been sealed, and we're supposed to pretend this thing is just a normal child. The words had cut deeper than usual. Naruto didn't understand what they meant, what monster, what sealing, but the hatred in the man's eyes had been crystal clear. When the shopkeeper had lunged at him with a kitchen knife, screaming about avenging his grandfather, Naruto had done the only thing he could. He'd run. Now, 3 blocks later, the mob had grown. Naruto could hear at least a dozen voices behind him, their anger feeding off each other like wildfire. His chest burned, his vision blurred with tears he refused to shed, and his legs were beginning to give out. This is it, he thought as he stumbled into a dead-end alley behind the old training grounds. I'm gonna die, and I don't even know why they hate me so much. Nowhere to run now, demon. Naruto spun around to face his pursuers, small fists raised in defiance despite knowing it was hopeless. The dozen villagers crowded into the alley entrance, some carrying improvised weapons, kitchen knives, wooden clubs, even a few farming tools. "Please," Naruto's voice cracked, but he forced himself to stand straight. "I didn't do anything wrong, I just wanted some ramen." "Your very existence is wrong," spat the shopkeeper, raising his knife. "You should have died with that monster." The blade gleamed in the afternoon sun as it began its downward arc toward the helpless child. Crack, the sound was like thunder splitting the sky. Every person in the alley, Naruto included, froze as a massive fist, easily the size of a grown man's torso, caught the shopkeeper's wrist with casual ease. The knife clattered harmlessly to the ground. Now, rumbled a deep, gravelly voice that seemed to shake the very walls. "What kind of grown men gang up on a little kid? That's not very manly, is it?" Naruto's eyes went wide as he looked up and up and up at the mountain of a man who had appeared as if from nowhere. The stranger stood nearly 7 feet tall, with iron-gray hair, a beard that could house small animals, and muscles that strained against what appeared to be some kind of white military uniform. But most striking of all were his eyes, sharp and intelligent, but carrying a warmth that Naruto had never seen directed at him before. Who are you?" stammered the shopkeeper, still caught in the giant's grip. "This doesn't concern you, stranger." The big man's expression darkened, and suddenly the temperature in the alley seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Monkey D. Garp, Vice Admiral of the Marines. And when I see a bunch of cowards threatening a child, that makes it very much my concern." "You don't understand," another villager shouted. "That boy, he's not normal." He's a kid," Garp interrupted, his voice carrying an authority that made grown men step back. 6, maybe 7 years old, and you're grown adults with weapons." His grip tightened on the shopkeeper's wrist, and the man winced. "Where I come from, we call that pathetic." Naruto stared in amazement. No one had ever stood up for him before. Not once in his entire short life had someone looked at him and seen just a kid instead of whatever it was they usually saw. "Let me go," the shopkeeper demanded. "You have no authority here. The Hokage can explain to me later why he allows child abuse in his village," Garp said coldly. He released the man's wrist and stepped forward, his massive frame blocking out the sun. "But right now, you're all going to walk away, quietly, and if I ever see any of you threatening this boy again." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The killing intent that rolled off the vice admiral was so thick it was almost visible, making the villagers stumble backward in primal terror. Within 30 seconds, the alley was empty except for Naruto and his unlikely savior. Garp turned around and his intimidating aura vanished as if it had never existed. Instead, he dropped into a crouch so he could meet Naruto at eye level, a gentle smile spreading across his weathered face. "You okay there, kid?" Naruto nodded mutely, still processing what had just happened. This stranger, this Garp, had scattered a dozen adults like they were nothing, and now he was looking at Naruto like he actually cared. "What's your name?" Garp asked. Naruto," the boy managed. "Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto, huh, that's a good, strong name." Garp's smile widened. "Tell me, Naruto, do you know why those people were chasing you?" Naruto's shoulders slumped. They always chase me, ever since I can remember. They call me names, throw things at me, try to hurt me, but I don't know why, I never did anything to them." Garp's expression grew thoughtful and Naruto caught a flicker of something, sadness. Recognition in those sharp eyes. "You know," Garp said quietly, "I once knew another boy who was hated for something that wasn't his fault. People called him names, treated him like a monster, wanted him dead before he'd even had a chance to live." The big man's fist clenched. "And you know what I told that boy?" "What?" Naruto whispered. "That it doesn't matter what other people think. What matters is who you choose to be." Garp's voice grew stronger. "And if anyone tries to hurt you for something that's not your fault, you get strong enough to stop them. Strong enough to protect yourself and the people you care about." "But I'm not strong," Naruto said, tears finally starting to fall. "I'm just a kid, I can't fight grown-ups with knives." "Not yet," Garp agreed. "But strength isn't something you're born with, Naruto. It's something you earn, through training, through struggle, through never giving up no matter how hard things get." He reached out and placed one massive hand on Naruto's shoulder. "And if you want it badly enough, I can teach you how to get that strong." Naruto's eyes went wide. You do that for me?" "Kid," Garp chuckled, "I've been training Marines for decades. Turning scared recruits into warriors strong enough to face down pirates and sea kings, but I've never met a child with eyes like yours." "What do you mean?" "Sad eyes," Garp said simply, "but not broken, not giving up. You've got the same look that boy I mentioned had, like no matter how much the world kicks you down, you'll keep getting back up." His grip on Naruto's shoulder tightened slightly. "That's the most important kind of strength there is, Naruto. Everything else can be taught." For a long moment, they stared at each other in silence. Then Naruto wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and straightened up as much as his small frame would allow. "Okay," he said, voice steadier than it had been all day. "Teach me." Garp's grin could have powered the entire village. "That's what I like to hear, but I should warn you, kid, my training isn't easy. I call it training with love, but most people just call it impossible." "What kind of training?" "Well," Garp rubbed his chin thoughtfully, "we'll start small, running up mountains, dodging cannonballs, lifting weights that are bigger than you are." "Standard stuff," Naruto blinked. That's the easy stuff. Don't worry, we'll work up to the really fun exercises, like punching through solid rock or my personal favorite, learning to tank attacks that would level buildings." Garp's eyes twinkled with mischief. "By the time I'm done with you, those villagers won't just leave you alone, they'll be too scared to even look at you funny." Despite everything, Naruto found himself grinning. It was the first genuine smile he'd worn in months. "When do we start?" "Right now if you want, but first," Garp's expression grew serious, "I need to have a little chat with your Hokage, got to make sure we do this properly." "The old man, he's okay, I guess." "Better than most people." "Just okay," Garp frowned. "Kid, if you're living in this village and getting chased by mobs, someone's not doing their job right. A leader protects all their people, especially the ones who can't protect themselves." Naruto had never thought about it that way. The third Hokage had always been kind to him, giving him his monthly allowance and checking on him occasionally. But he'd never stopped the villagers from treating Naruto like dirt. "Come on," Garp said, standing to his full imposing height. "Let's go have that conversation. And Naruto? Yeah, from now on you're under my protection. Anyone who wants to hurt you goes through me first." The vice admiral's smile turned predatory. And trust me, that's not a fight they want to pick. As they walked toward the Hokage tower together, Garp's massive stride forcing Naruto to take 2 steps for every one of his, the young Uzumaki felt something he'd never experienced before. Safety, hope, and the first stirrings of what would eventually become an unshakable confidence that no force on earth could break. Behind them, hidden in the shadows of the alley, a figure in an orange mask watched their departure with great interest. How curious, Obito Uchiha murmured to himself. This wasn't part of the plan, I'll need to keep an eye on this. Garp. But that was a problem for another day. For now, Uzumaki Naruto had found someone who would change his destiny forever. And in a world where strength was everything, he was about to learn from one of the strongest men who had ever lived. The Hokage's dilemma, the Hokage Tower, had seen many tense meetings over the decades, but none quite like this one. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage, sat behind his desk trying to maintain his composure while a mountain of a man in a strange white uniform dominated his office simply by existing in it. So let me get this straight, Garp said, his arms crossed as he loomed over the considerably smaller Hokage. You've known about the boy's situation for 6 years, and your solution has been to give him pocket money and hope for the best. Hiruzen's grip tightened on his pipe. The situation is more complex than you understand, Garp-san. The villagers lost family and friends when the Ninetales attacked. Their anger is being directed at a child who had nothing to do with it, Garp interrupted, his voice carrying the authority of a man accustomed to commanding fleets. I've seen a lot of stupid things in my time, old man, but letting grown adults terrorize a 6-year-old might take the prize. We cannot simply ignore the villagers' feelings, then redirect them. Garp's fist slammed onto the desk, leaving a spider web of cracks in the wood. You're the leader of this village, aren't you? Lead them. Show them that the boy is worth protecting instead of hiding behind politics. In the corner of the office, Naruto sat quietly in a chair that was too big for him, watching this exchange with wide eyes. No one had ever argued with the Hokage on his behalf before. The old man was the strongest person in the village, wasn't he? Yet here was Garp, treating him like any other adult who'd failed in their responsibilities. Hiruzen sighed deeply, suddenly looking every one of his 68 years. And what exactly are you proposing? You appear in my village from nowhere, claim to be from some marine organization I've never heard of, and now demand to train our most sensitive asset? Asset, Garp's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. That's what you call him, an asset? I know what you meant. Garp turned to look at Naruto, his expression softening. Tell me, kid, do you feel like an asset of this village? Naruto shook his head slowly. I feel like something they wish would disappear. The words hit the room like a physical blow. Hiruzen closed his eyes, pain flickering across his weathered features. As I thought, Garp said, turning back to the Hokage. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to train this boy to be stronger than anyone in this village has ever dreamed of being. And when he's done with my training, he'll have the power to protect himself and everyone else too. Your choice is whether you help me do it right or whether you try to stop me and deal with the consequences. Is that a threat? Garp's smile was sharp as a blade. It's a promise. I've toppled governments for less than what I've seen here today. Hiruzen studied the strange man carefully. There was something about Garp, a presence that even a veteran shinobi couldn't ignore. The way he moved, the casual confidence, the overwhelming aura of strength barely held in check. This was a man who had faced down monsters and won. What kind of training are you proposing? Hiruzen asked finally. Physical conditioning first, mental fortitude second. The boy's got potential, but he's been beaten down his whole life. We fix that. Garp cracked his knuckles. I trained my own grandson to fight sea kings with his bare hands by the time he was 7. Naruto here is going to make that look like child's play. Sea kings? Think summons, but bigger and angrier. Garp waved dismissively. Point is, when I'm done with him, no one in this village will ever be able to hurt him again. And more importantly, he'll have the strength to protect the people who are worth protecting. Naruto perked up at that. Really? I could get that strong? Kid, by the time you're 12, you'll be punching holes through mountains. Garp's grin was infectious. But it's going to hurt. A lot. My training isn't for the weak-hearted. I don't care if it hurts, Naruto said with surprising conviction. I'm tired of being scared all the time. Hiruzen watched the exchange with growing amazement. In the span of a single conversation, he was seeing more determination and hope in Naruto's eyes than in all their previous meetings combined. Very well, the Hokage said finally, but there will be conditions. The boy will still attend the academy, no problem. Kid needs to learn your local techniques anyway. My training will just make sure he doesn't get killed while he's learning them. And you will submit to periodic evaluations to ensure the training isn't harmful. Done. Though I should warn you, my idea of not harmful might be different from yours, Garp chuckled. But don't worry, I've never had a student die on me. Cry a lot, yes. Beg for mercy, definitely, but die. Never. Naruto felt a chill run down his spine, but also a thrill of excitement. This was going to be harder than anything he'd ever done, but for the first time in his life, someone believed he could handle it. When do we start? Naruto asked eagerly. Tomorrow morning dawn, meet me at training ground 44. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow. The forest of death, isn't that a bit extreme for a child? Extreme is the point, Garp replied cheerfully. If he can survive my training there, everywhere else will feel like a vacation. The training begins the next morning. Naruto arrived at training ground 44 just as the sun was peeking over the horizon. He'd barely slept, excitement and terror warring in his stomach all night. The massive forest stretched out before him, filled with sounds that definitely didn't come from normal animals. Garp was already there, but he wasn't alone. Somehow, impossibly, he'd assembled what looked like a small military training course complete with obstacle courses, weights that were definitely not regulation size, and several contraptions that Naruto couldn't begin to identify. How did you build all this overnight? Naruto asked in amazement. I didn't sleep, Garp said simply. Marines don't have time for sleep when there's work to be done. Speaking of which, catch! Without warning, he hurled something at Naruto. The boy's reflexes, honed by years of dodging thrown objects, kicked in just enough for him to see what was coming at his face. It was a cannonball. Ahhhh! Naruto dove to the side, the iron sphere cratering the ground where he'd been standing. Good reflexes, Garp nodded approvingly. Not good enough, but we'll work on that. Rule number 1 of my training. If you're not dodging something that could kill you, you're not trying hard enough. You threw a cannonball at me, and you dodged it. See, you're already stronger than you think you are. Garp gestured to the obstacle course. Now let's see what you can do. I want you to run through that course as fast as you can. Naruto looked at the course doubtfully. The first obstacle was a wall that was at least twice his height. The second appeared to be a pit filled with wooden spikes. The third, was that a bear trap? This is supposed to train me. This is supposed to start training you. By the end of the month, you'll be doing this course while dodging cannonballs. By the end of the year, Garp's smile was terrifying. Well, let's just say the cannonballs won't be the scary part anymore. With a deep breath, Naruto approached the first obstacle. The wall was smooth wood, offering no handholds. He tried to climb it traditionally and failed, sliding back down after getting barely 2 feet off the ground. Problem, Garp called out. I can't reach the top. Then don't reach it, go through it. Through it. But it's a wall, kid. I've seen Marines punch through battleship armor. You're telling me you can't handle a little wood? Naruto stared at Garp like he'd gone insane. I'm 6 years old, and age is just a number. Strength is a choice. Garp walked over and with casual ease punched a hole clean through the wall. Like that, now you try. I can't punch through walls, not with that attitude you can't. Garp grabbed Naruto's small fist and examined it. You've got good bone structure, strong foundation. All you need is the right mindset. He looked Naruto in the eyes. Tell me, what happens if you don't get stronger? Naruto thought about the previous day, the knives, the hatred, the helplessness. I keep getting hurt and I can't protect anyone. Exactly, so what's a little pain in your knuckles compared to that? Garp released his hand. Now hit the wall, put everything you've got into it. All your anger, all your frustration, all your determination, don't hold back. Naruto looked at the wall, then at his small fist, then back at the wall. This was crazy. This was impossible. This was the only chance he'd ever had. With a yell that came from the very depths of his soul, Naruto threw himself at the wall, his fist leading the way. There was a crack, whether from his knuckles or the wood, he couldn't tell, and then his fist went through. Not all the way through like Garp's had, but enough to leave a definite hole in the wood. Naruto stared at his bleeding knuckles in shock. I did it. You did it. Garp's voice was filled with pride. First lesson learned. Your limits are usually in your head. Now let's work on expanding those limits. The next 4 hours were the most brutal of Naruto's young life. By the time Garp finally called a halt, the boy had somehow made it through the entire obstacle course 3 times, each run faster than the last. His hands were bloody, his clothes were torn, his entire body screamed in pain, and he'd never felt better in his life. Good work for day 1, Garp said, tossing Naruto a canteen of water. Tomorrow we'll add the weights. Weights, Garp pointed to a pile of what looked like iron blocks. Ankle weights, wrist weights, weighted vest. Can't build real strength without proper resistance. How heavy are they? 20 pounds each to start. We'll work up to the real training weights eventually. Naruto's eyes went wide. The weights were nearly as big as he was. That's like carrying another person. 3 other people actually, once you've got the full set on. But don't worry, Garp's grin was evil. You'll get used to it, or you'll get crushed. Either way, you'll be stronger afterward. Despite the terrifying prospect, Naruto found himself grinning back. For the first time in his life, he was looking forward to tomorrow. Academy days 3 months later, Naruto walked into the academy classroom and immediately noticed the change in atmosphere. The other students who had previously either ignored him or whispered cruel comments behind his back were now staring at him with something approaching awe. It wasn't hard to see why. The scrawny, malnourished boy who had started the year had been replaced by a compact powerhouse of muscle and confidence. Garp's training had added 20 pounds of solid muscle to Naruto's frame, and his posture now radiated the quiet assurance of someone who knew exactly what he was capable of. Naruto, Sakura Haruno blinked in surprise. Is that really you? Hey, Sakura-chan, Naruto replied with a casual wave. His voice had changed to deeper, more controlled. 3 months of Garp's vocal projection exercises, which mostly involved yelling battle cries while being pelted with rubber balls, had given him the bearing of a young soldier. You look different, Ino whispered. Training, Naruto said simply. Lots and lots of training. Sasuke Uchiha, the self-proclaimed prodigy of their class, studied Naruto with sharp eyes. Something was different about the dead last, but he couldn't quite put his finger on what. All right, class, Uruka-sensei entered the room carrying a stack of papers. Today we're going to be working on our taijutsu forms. Please pair up for sparring practice. The usual shuffle began as students picked their partners. Naruto found himself standing alone as always until, I'll spar with him, Sasuke announced, pointing at Naruto. The classroom fell silent. Sasuke Uchiha, the academy's top student, wanted to fight the dead last. Sasuke, Uruka said carefully, are you sure? Naruto's taijutsu scores have been inconsistent. That's fine, Sasuke replied, though his eyes never left Naruto. I want to see what he can do, Naruto shrugged. Sure, why not? The class gathered around as the 2 boys took their positions in the center of the room. Sasuke dropped into the traditional Uchiha fighting stance, precise and controlled. Naruto, by contrast, simply stood there with his hands at his sides, looking almost bored. Begin, Uruka called out. Sasuke moved first, launching himself forward with textbook-perfect form. His fist shot toward Naruto's face in a technique that would have overwhelmed any other student in their class. Naruto tilted his head slightly to the right. Sasuke's punch missed by millimeters, and suddenly the Uchiha found himself off balance and overextended. Before he could recover, Naruto's palm pressed gently against his chest. Tag, Naruto said quietly. You're out. The push that followed was barely more than a nudge, but it sent Sasuke skidding backward across the floor to slam against the far wall with enough force to crack the wood paneling. The classroom erupted in shocked gasps. Sasuke slumped to the floor, winded but uninjured, staring at Naruto in disbelief. How? He gasped. Training, Naruto repeated. Lots and lots of training. Uruka stared between his 2 students, trying to process what he just witnessed. Naruto had moved with the casual precision of a trained fighter, reading Sasuke's attack perfectly and countering it without even seeming to try. Naruto, Uruka said slowly, what kind of training have you been doing? The kind that works, Naruto replied with a small smile. Sensei always says that if you can't handle a simple attack like that, you'll never survive when the real fighting starts. Your sensei, Garp sensei. He's teaching me how to be strong enough to protect everyone. Naruto's expression grew serious. Strong enough that no one will ever have to be afraid again. As the implications of what they just witnessed began to sink in, the students of the academy realized that everything they thought they knew about Uzumaki Naruto had just changed forever. The dead last wasn't dead last anymore. He was becoming something entirely different, something unstoppable. Team 7 unveiled the graduation had been anticlimactic. While other students struggled with the clone jutsu, the technique that had failed Naruto twice before, he'd simply created 3 perfect clones and moved on. No drama, no last-minute heroics, just cold efficiency that left Uruka staring in bewilderment. Now, standing in classroom 301 alongside his fellow graduates, Naruto found himself genuinely curious about what came next. Garp had warned him that real ninja training would begin after graduation, but had been frustratingly vague about the details. Team 7, Uruka announced, consulting his clipboard. Uzumaki Naruto, Haruno Sakura, and Uchiha Sasuke. Your Jounin instructor is Hatake Kakashi. Sakura groaned audibly. Being paired with Naruto had been her worst fear, or at least it would have been 3 months ago. The Naruto sitting beside her now was a completely different creature, radiating quiet confidence that somehow made even her beloved Sasuke seem less impressive by comparison. Sasuke himself was still processing his defeat from the sparring match weeks earlier. He trained harder since then, pushed himself to new limits, but somehow he doubted it would be enough. The casual way Naruto had dismantled his attack haunted his dreams. So, Naruto said conversationally as the other teams were called and departed, anyone know anything about this Kakashi guy? He's supposed to be one of the strongest Jounin in the village, Sakura replied, grateful for the distraction. They call him the copy ninja. Copy ninja? Naruto raised an eyebrow. What's he copy? Jutsu, apparently. He can replicate almost any technique he sees. Huh, Naruto seemed genuinely interested. Wonder if he can copy a good right hook. Before Sakura could ask what he meant, the classroom door slid open. A silver-haired man in a standard Jounin vest poked his head inside, his visible eye crinkling in what might have been a smile. Team 7, my first impression of you is, you're interesting. The revelation an hour later, they sat on the roof of the academy building while their new sensei studied them with calculating eyes. Kakashi had suggested they introduce themselves, dreams, likes, dislikes, hobbies, but Naruto was beginning to suspect this was more than casual small talk. Why don't you start, Sakura? Kakashi suggested. Okay. I'm Haruno Sakura, I like. She glanced at Sasuke. Certain people, I dislike loud, annoying people, and my dream is to... Another glance at Sasuke accompanied by a blush. Still hung up on the Uchiha, Naruto thought with mild amusement. Garp's lessons on reading people had made certain things painfully obvious. Right, Sasuke? I'm Uchiha Sasuke. I don't like many things and I dislike most things. My ambition is to kill a certain man and restore my clan. Kakashi's eyes sharpened slightly at that. And you, Naruto? Uzumaki Naruto. The blonde leaned back against the roof railing, completely relaxed. I like training, good ramen, and people who don't give up. I dislike bullies and anyone who hurts people weaker than themselves. His expression grew serious. My dream is to become strong enough to protect everyone who's worth protecting and to become a Hokage who actually earns the title. Kakashi blinked. That was not what he'd expected from the supposed dead last. Interesting goals, he said carefully. And how exactly do you plan to achieve that level of strength? Naruto's grin was sharp as a blade. The same way I've been achieving it so far, through training that would kill most people. Is that so? Kakashi's tone remained casual, but his posture shifted subtly. And who exactly has been providing this training? Garp Sensei. Best teacher in the world, according to him, and honestly, after 3 months, I'm starting to believe it. Garp? Kakashi searched his memory but came up empty. No ninja by that name in any of the databases he had access to. This was getting more intriguing by the minute. Well, Kakashi said, clapping his hands together, I suppose we should see what you're all capable of. Meet me at Training Ground 3 tomorrow at 6 a.m. for your final test. Final test, Sakura squeaked. But we already graduated. The academy graduation is just a formality. The real test to become genin happens tomorrow. Kakashi's eye crinkled again. Oh, and don't eat breakfast. You'll just throw it up. As the silver-haired Jounin disappeared in a swirl of leaves, Sasuke turned to Naruto with barely contained curiosity. This Garp, he said quietly, what kind of training does he put you through? Naruto considered the question seriously. The kind that makes you wish you were dead, but also makes you realize you're way stronger than you thought you were. That's not an answer. Yesterday, I spent 4 hours dodging cannonballs while carrying 200-pound weights and running up a mountain. Naruto's tone was matter-of-fact. Day before that, I punched through solid rock until my knuckles stopped bleeding. Tomorrow morning, before this test, I'll probably be doing push-ups with a tree on my back. Sakura stared at him in horror. That's insane. That's effective, Naruto corrected. Garp-sensei says that if training doesn't push you past your limits, it's not training, it's just exercise. Sasuke's hands clenched into fists. The gap between them was even wider than he'd thought. The bell test, rewritten the next morning, Kakashi arrived at Training Ground 3 exactly 3 hours late, expecting to find 3 irritated, hungry genin candidates. Instead, he found Sasuke and Sakura sitting quietly while Naruto did one-handed push-ups with what appeared to be a large boulder balanced on his back. 297, Naruto counted as Kakashi approached. 298, 299, 300. He smoothly transitioned to his feet, the boulder falling harmlessly to the ground. Morning, Kakashi-sensei. You're late? I got lost on the road of life, Kakashi replied automatically, though his visible eye was fixed on the boulder. It had to weigh at least 500 pounds. How long have you been doing that? About an hour. Garp-sensei says morning warm-ups are important for maintaining peak physical condition. Warm-ups, Kakashi repeated slowly. Yeah, the real training comes later. Naruto wiped sweat from his forehead with a towel he'd apparently brought for the purpose. So what's this test about? Kakashi reached into his pouch and withdrew 2 small bells. Simple, you have until noon to take these bells from me. Anyone who doesn't get a bell gets tied to a post and goes without lunch. But there are only 2 bells, Sakura pointed out. That's right, which means at least one of you will definitely fail. Kakashi attached the bells to his belt. You can use any weapons or techniques you want. You won't succeed unless you come at me with the intent to kill. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. Sakura gulped nervously. Naruto just nodded. Makes sense. When do we start? Now, Kakashi settled into a relaxed stance. Begin. Sasuke and Sakura immediately leaped for cover among the trees, following standard ninja doctrine. Naruto, by contrast, walked straight toward Kakashi with his hands in his pockets. Interesting approach, Kakashi observed. Most students try to hide first. Most students weren't trained by Garp-sensei. Naruto stopped about 10 feet away and rolled his shoulders, loosening up. He always said that if you need to hide from your opponent, you're not strong enough to be fighting them in the first place. And you think you're strong enough to fight me? I think, Naruto said, dropping into a combat stance that Kakashi didn't recognize. We're about to find out. Without warning, Naruto exploded forward. Not the clumsy rush of an academy student, but the precise, devastating charge of a trained fighter. His fist, wreathed in what looked like pure kinetic force, drove toward Kakashi's center mass. Kakashi barely managed to substitute with a log before the attack landed. The log exploded into splinters. What the hell? Kakashi thought, reappearing in the trees 20 yards away. That wasn't chakra enhancement, that was pure physical power. Nice dodge, Naruto called out, apparently not bothered by missing his target. Garp-sensei's faster, though. He was moving again before Kakashi could process the comment, somehow covering the distance between them in a single bound. This time his attack was a sweeping kick aimed at the Jounin's legs. Kakashi jumped to avoid it, and the kick passed harmlessly beneath him until it hit the tree he'd been standing next to. The massive oak, easily 3 feet in diameter, snapped in half with a sound like thunder. Okay, Kakashi said aloud, that's definitely not normal. From their hiding spots, Sasuke and Sakura watched in stunned silence as Naruto proceeded to treat one of Konoha's elite jounin like a sparring partner. Every missed attack left craters in the ground or destroyed pieces of the landscape. Every movement was precise, controlled, and devastatingly powerful. "Is he holding back?" Sakura whispered. "He has to be," Sasuke replied, but his voice was uncertain. "Nobody our age should be able to move like that." Meanwhile, Kakashi was rapidly revising his assessment of the situation. The boy wasn't just strong, he was impossibly strong. His technique was flawless, his power output was off the charts, and most disturbing of all, he seemed to be treating this entire encounter as a friendly test rather than a life-or-death battle. "You're good," Naruto admitted as another of his punches missed by inches, "but you're holding back too much. Garp-sensei always said that if you're not giving your all, you're insulting your opponent." "Is that so?" Kakashi activated his Sharingan, pulling up his headband to reveal the crimson eye beneath. "Then I suppose I should take this more seriously. Now we're talking." Naruto's grin was fierce. "Let's see what the famous copy ninja can really do." What followed was less a fight than a natural disaster. For 15 minutes, student and teacher traded blows that reshaped the training ground, each attack faster and more powerful than the last. Trees fell, boulders shattered, and the very earth shook beneath their feet. And at the end of it all, Naruto stood victorious, both bells clutched in his right hand. "How?" Kakashi gasped, sprawled on his back in a crater that definitely hadn't been there when they'd started. "Garp-sensei taught me that the best way to take something from someone is to hit them so hard they forget they were holding it in the first place." Naruto helped the jounin to his feet with surprising gentleness. "Good fight, though. You lasted longer than most of Garp-sensei's training dummies." Kakashi accepted the help, his mind still reeling. In 15 years as a jounin, he'd never encountered anything like this. The boy fought like a seasoned veteran with strength that rivaled the Hokage himself. "The bells," Sakura said weakly as she and Sasuke emerged from their hiding spots. "Does this mean?" Naruto looked down at the bells in his hand, then at his teammates. Without hesitation, he tossed one to each of them. "Here, I already passed the test." "What test?" Sasuke caught his bell reflexively. "Teamwork," Kakashi said, finally understanding. "The test was never about taking the bells by force, it was about working together." He studied Naruto curiously. "How did you know?" "Garp-sensei taught me that the strongest person is the one who protects their friends, not the one who wins alone." Naruto's smile was genuine. "Besides, what kind of team would we be if I left them behind?" As Kakashi looked at his 3 new students, one driven by love, one by revenge, and one by an unshakable desire to protect others, he realized he'd been assigned to something special. This wasn't just any genin team, this was the team that would change everything. A mission beyond expectations, a C-rank escort mission to the Land of Waves, the 3rd Hokage announced, sliding the mission scroll across his desk. "You'll be protecting a bridge builder named Tazuna during his journey home." Kakashi accepted the scroll while his team stood at attention behind him. Well, Sasuke and Sakura stood at attention. Naruto was doing calf raises, apparently unable to remain completely still even during official briefings. "Sounds simple enough," Kakashi mused, scanning the details. "When do we leave?" "Immediately. The client is waiting at the village gates." Hiruzen's eyes lingered on Naruto for a moment. "I trust there won't be any complications?" "With respect, Hokage-sama," Naruto said without pausing in his exercises, "Garp-sensei always says that if you're not prepared for complications, you're not prepared for anything." "Indeed." Hiruzen's tone was dry. "Well then, Team 7, consider this your first real test as ninja." An hour later, they met their client at Konoha's main gate. Tazuna was exactly what Naruto had expected from the mission briefing, an elderly bridge builder with calloused hands and a sake bottle that seemed permanently attached to his hip. "So these are my bodyguards?" Tazuna looked them over skeptically, his gaze lingering on Naruto with obvious disdain. "A bunch of kids, and what's wrong with that one?" He pointed at Naruto, who had started doing push-ups against the gate while they talked. "Nothing's wrong with him," Kakashi replied mildly. "He just has a lot of energy." "Energy won't stop a kunai to the throat," Tazuna grumbled. "You'd be surprised," Sasuke muttered, remembering their bell test. "The demon brothers' mistake the attack came on the second day of travel," just as they entered the dense forests between Fire Country and Wave Country. Two ninja emerged from a mud puddle that definitely hadn't been there moments before, their claw weapons gleaming in the dappled sunlight. "Die!" they shouted in unison, launching themselves at the group with killing intent. Kakashi moved to intercept, but Naruto was faster. The blonde genin stepped forward, caught the first attacker's clawed gauntlet with his bare hand and squeezed. The sound of metal crushing was clearly audible as the weapon crumpled like paper in his grip. "Huh," Naruto said conversationally, studying the ruined weapon. Garp-sensei was right. "These are pretty flimsy compared to Sea King teeth." The demon brother stared at his destroyed weapon in shock. What are you?" "A student," Naruto replied, then drove his elbow into the man's solar plexus. The missing nin folded like origami and hit the ground unconscious. The second brother, seeing his partner's fate, tried to retreat. He made it exactly 3 steps before Naruto appeared in front of him, not through any jutsu, just pure speed. "Where are you going?" Naruto asked politely. "The fight's not over yet." A single finger flick to the forehead sent the second demon brother flying backward to slam into a tree trunk hard enough to leave a human-shaped dent in the bark. Total elapsed time, 12 seconds. "Well," Kakashi said into the stunned silence that followed, "that was efficient." Tazuna was gaping like a fish. Sakura and Sasuke had expressions of resigned amazement. This was just Tuesday for Naruto now. "Naruto," Kakashi continued, "next time maybe try to leave them conscious for questioning." "Oh right," Naruto looked genuinely apologetic. "Sorry, Kakashi-sensei." Garp-sensei always said to end fights as quickly as possible, but I guess interrogation is important too. As they bound the unconscious missing nin, Kakashi found himself recalibrating his expectations for this mission. If Tazuna was important enough to warrant Chunin-level assassins, this was definitely not a simple C-rank escort. But with Naruto on the team, that might not matter as much as it usually would. The Demon of the Hidden Mist. The encounter with Zabuza came at the bridge, just as in the original timeline. The Demon of the Hidden Mist emerged from his water clone technique with all the theatrical flair he was famous for, massive sword gleaming and killing intent thick enough to taste. Well, Zabuza's voice carried across the misty bridge. "Kakashi of the Sharingan, this should be interesting." Kakashi tensed, immediately moving to protect his students. "Stay back, all of you. This one's dangerous." "How dangerous?" Naruto asked with genuine curiosity, seemingly unaffected by the oppressive aura of death surrounding them. "A rank missing nin from the Hidden Mist," Kakashi replied, not taking his eyes off Zabuza. "One of the 7 ninja swordsmen. He could kill you without breaking a sweat." "Huh," Naruto considered this. Garp-sensei always said the best way to handle people like that is to hit them really, really hard. Naruto, no, but Naruto was already moving. Zabuza saw him coming, of course. The boy's approach was hardly subtle, a straight-line charge with no attempt at stealth or misdirection. The kind of amateur mistake that got Genin killed. The Demon of the Mist brought his massive blade around in a horizontal sweep that should have bisected the foolish child at the waist. The blade stopped dead against Naruto's forearm. For a moment, the only sound was the gentle lapping of waves against the bridge supports. Then Zabuza's eyes widened behind his mask as he realized what had just happened. The boy had blocked Kubikirabacho, a blade designed to cut through armor and bone with his bare arm, and he didn't have so much as a scratch to show for it. "Nice sword," Naruto commented, grabbing the blade with his other hand. "Heavy too, good for training." He twisted, and Kubikirabacho, the legendary executioner's blade that had ended hundreds of lives, snapped in half. "My sword," Zabuza roared, more shocked than angry. "Sorry about that," Naruto said, though he didn't sound particularly apologetic. Garp-sensei always said that if a weapon breaks that easily, it wasn't a very good weapon to begin with. What followed was less a fight than a natural disaster. Zabuza was faster than most jounin could follow, but Naruto was faster and infinitely stronger. Every punch the blonde threw created shockwaves that rippled across the water. Every kick he attempted would have shattered stone. Zabuza, to his credit, lasted almost 30 seconds. When the mist finally cleared, the Demon of the Hidden Mist was embedded waist-deep in the bridge's support structure, unconscious and thoroughly defeated. Is he dead? Sakura asked in a small voice. Naruto checked his pulse. Nope, just knocked out. Garp-sensei taught me how to hit people really hard without killing them. It's all about the angle and follow-through. From the tree line, a figure in a hunter-nin mask watched the proceedings with growing horror. Haku had come to retrieve his master's body, as planned. He had not come prepared to deal with a 12-year-old who could treat Zabuza like a training dummy. What kind of monster is that boy? Haku thought desperately. And how am I supposed to save Zabuza-sama now? The ice dome dilemma. The answer, as it turned out, was the same way he always had, through speed, precision, and his bloodline limit. Haku made his move 3 days later when Team 7 was crossing the unfinished bridge for what should have been the final time. Ice mirrors erupted from the morning air, surrounding Naruto in a perfect dome of reflective surfaces. Demonic mirroring ice crystals, Haku announced, his voice echoing from every direction at once. No one has ever escaped this jutsu alive. Cool technique, Naruto said, genuinely impressed as he studied the ice mirrors surrounding him. Very artistic. Garp-sensei would appreciate the craftsmanship. You should be terrified, Haku said, confused by the boy's casual reaction. You're trapped with no way out. Am I? Naruto tilted his head thoughtfully. I mean, I could just punch my way out, but that seems kind of rude. You put a lot of work into this. You can't just punch through my ice mirrors. They're harder than steel. Yeah, but Garp-sensei taught me how to punch through steel too, Naruto shrugged. But hey, why don't you try your attack first? It's only fair. Haku stared at the blonde boy in disbelief. Was he actually offering to let himself be attacked? Either this child was completely insane, or he was so confident in his abilities that he genuinely wasn't worried. Very well, Haku said finally, but don't say I didn't warn you. He began moving between the mirrors at incredible speed, throwing senbon needles with precise accuracy. Each needle was aimed at a vital point, designed to induce a death-like state without actually killing. It was a technique that had never failed him. The needles bounced off Naruto's skin like pebbles off a mountain. That tickles, Naruto observed, watching the senbon fall harmlessly to the ground. Is that it? Haku threw more needles, faster this time, aiming for pressure points that should have paralyzed the boy regardless of his apparent durability. Still nothing? I don't understand, Haku said, his voice cracking slightly. Those should have dropped you instantly. Garp-sensei used to throw cannonballs at me for practice, Naruto explained patiently. After a while, you kind of get used to things bouncing off you, he stretched casually. Okay, my turn. Your turn, Naruto drew back his fist, and for the first time since the technique had begun, Haku felt genuine fear. Galaxy, Naruto began, his voice taking on a tone that Garp would have recognized immediately. Wait, impact! The punch that followed wasn't aimed at any single mirror. It wasn't even aimed at the dome itself. Naruto simply punched the air in front of him, and the sheer pressure wave that resulted shattered every single ice mirror simultaneously. Haku, caught in the middle of transitioning between mirrors when they all exploded at once, hit the bridge hard enough to crack the stone beneath him. Ow, he mumbled, struggling to sit up. His mask had cracked, revealing one chocolate-brown eye and part of a surprisingly delicate face. You okay? Naruto asked, offering him a hand up. Sorry about the technique. I tried to go easy on it. Easy? Haku stared at the destruction around them, his supposedly impenetrable ice dome reduced to glittering fragments in a single attack. That was you going easy? Well, yeah. Garp-sensei's version can level mountains. Naruto helped the ice user to his feet with surprising gentleness. Speaking of which, why are you trying to kill me? I don't think we've been introduced. I was trying to save Zabuza-sama, Haku said quietly, suddenly feeling very young and very confused. The guy I knocked out a few days ago, he seemed okay when we left him with the authorities. You don't understand. Haku's voice was urgent now. Gateau will have him killed if he can't complete this mission. Zabuza-sama is all I have left in this world. Naruto studied the boy, and he was clearly a boy, despite the hunter-nin disguise with thoughtful eyes. So you're fighting to protect someone important to you, he said finally. Yes, and you're willing to do anything to save them. Of course, even kill people who aren't really your enemies, Haku hesitated. Yes. For Zabuza-sama, I would. That's stupid, Naruto interrupted, but his tone was gentle rather than harsh. Garp-sensei taught me that real strength means finding a way to save everyone who's worth saving. Even if they're on opposite sides. That's impossible, Haku protested. Sometimes there are no good choices. There are always good choices, Naruto replied firmly. Sometimes you just have to be strong enough to make them work. Before Haku could ask what he meant, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed across the bridge. Gateau and his mercenaries were arriving right on schedule, just as they had in the original timeline. Except this time, things were going to go very differently. Well, Naruto said, cracking his knuckles, looks like I get to show you what I mean. The small army of thugs that emerged from the morning mist suddenly seemed a lot less threatening than they had moments before. The bridge builder's army. Gateau's arrival with his army of mercenaries should have been the climactic moment, the point where superior numbers overwhelmed the exhausted heroes. Instead, it turned into something more resembling a public service announcement about what happened when regular thugs encountered an actual monster. Well, Gateau sneered as he surveyed the scene. Zabuza was still unconscious, embedded in the bridge support. Haku sat on the ground with his broken mask, looking dazed. Team 7 stood ready for battle, though only 3 of them looked particularly concerned about the 100-odd mercenaries spreading out behind their employer. Naruto just looked annoyed. So you're the guy who's been terrorizing these people, he said, studying Gateau with the same clinical interest he'd shown the demon brothers. Garp-sensei taught me about people like you. Oh really? Gateau laughed, pulling out a crossbow. And what did he teach you, brat? That bullies are always the weakest people in any fight, Naruto replied. They just hide behind numbers because they're too pathetic to handle things themselves. Gateau's face flushed red. Kill them all! The mercenaries charged en masse, weapons raised and battle cries echoing across the bridge. It should have been overwhelming, 100 armed men against 4 genin and their injured teacher. Instead, Naruto stepped forward and clapped his hands together once. The shockwave that followed was like a concentrated hurricane. Every single mercenary was blown backward off the bridge, sailing through the air to splash into the water below. Those few who managed to keep their footing found themselves facing a 12-year-old boy who was walking toward them with the casual confidence of someone taking a morning stroll. Anyone else? Naruto asked politely. The remaining mercenaries looked at their boss, then at the boy, then at the dozens of their compatriots floating in the harbor below. As one, they threw down their weapons and ran. Gateau, left alone on the bridge, began backing away slowly. This isn't possible, you're just a kid. And you're just a coward, Naruto replied, still walking forward. Garp-sensei always said that cowards like you only understand one kind of language. He drew back his fist and Gateau's eyes went wide with terror. Wait, Haku's voice cut across the bridge. Don't kill him, Naruto paused, fist still cocked. Why not? He's been enslaving an entire country. Because killing him won't fix anything, Haku said, struggling to his feet. And because you said real strength means finding a way to save everyone worth saving. I said everyone worth saving, Naruto corrected. I'm not sure this guy qualifies. But the people he's hurt do, Haku continued. If you kill him here, his organization will just send someone else to replace him. The cycle continues. The ice user's voice grew stronger, but if he lives, he can be made to answer for his crimes properly. Naruto considered this for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You know what? You're right. He turned back to Gateau, who was now cowering on the ground. Lucky you. Instead of the killing blow Gateau had expected, Naruto simply flicked him in the forehead with one finger. The impact sent the crime lord flying across the bridge to land in an unconscious heap near Zabuza. There, Naruto said with satisfaction, problem solved without anyone dying. The demon's awakening. It was at that moment that Zabuza chose to regain consciousness. The demon of the mist extracted himself from the bridge support with a series of ominous cracks and creaks, brushing stone dust from his shoulders. His eyes took in the scene, his broken sword, the unconscious Gateau, the defeated mercenaries floating in the harbor, and Haku sitting unmasked on the bridge. Well, he said finally, his voice carrying a note of grudging respect, that's not how I expected this to end. Zabuza-sama, Haku scrambled to his feet, relief evident in his voice. Easy, Haku, Zabuza's gaze fixed on Naruto. So you're the one who broke my sword. Sorry about that, Naruto replied, though he didn't sound particularly sorry. I can probably get you a new one if you want. Garp-sensei knows some good blacksmiths. That's surprisingly considerate for someone who just defeated me in combat. Zabuza studied the blonde boy with newfound interest. Tell me, kid, what's your name? Uzumaki Naruto, future Hokage. Hokage, Zabuza actually laughed at that. You want to lead a village? Someone has to, Naruto said simply. Might as well be someone who's strong enough to actually protect everyone. There was something in the way he said it, a quiet conviction that reminded Zabuza uncomfortably of his own younger self, back when he'd still believed in ideals like justice and protection. You know, Zabuza said slowly, I came here to kill an old man and collect a paycheck, but it seems like that plan's not going to work out. Probably not, Naruto agreed. So what happens now? You turn me over to your village's authorities, execute me for my crimes. Garp-sensei always said that everyone deserves a second chance, Naruto replied. Even people who have made really bad choices. He gestured toward the unconscious Gateau. Besides, seems like you've got bigger problems than us right now. Zabuza followed his gaze and grunted in understanding. With Gateau defeated and his mercenary army scattered, the immediate threat to Wave Country was over. But that also meant Zabuza's contract was null and void, and missing nin who failed their contracts rarely lived long enough to find new ones. What are you suggesting? Zabuza asked. Help us finish what we started, Naruto said. Help the people of Wave Country get back on their feet. Help build something better than what Gateau left behind. His eyes met Zabuza's directly. And maybe find out what it's like to be the hero instead of the monster for once. The bridge to tomorrow. 3 days later, Team 7 stood at the completed bridge alongside Tazuna and the gathered villagers of Wave Country. The past few days had been a whirlwind of activity as the community came together to finish their symbol of independence. Zabuza and Haku had proven surprisingly effective at construction work. The former demon of the mist's strength and precision made him excellent at placing heavy support beams, while Haku's ice techniques had revolutionized the concrete setting process. I still can't believe this worked, Sakura murmured, watching as Zabuza demonstrated proper beam welding technique to a group of fascinated workers. Garp-sensei always said that the best way to change someone is to give them a reason to want to change, Naruto replied. Zabuza and Haku just needed to remember what they were fighting for in the first place. And what's that? Sasuke asked. Each other, Naruto said simply. Same as all of us, really. Kakashi, who had been unusually quiet during the bridge's completion, finally spoke up. Naruto, can I ask you something? Sure, Kakashi-sensei. This Garp who trained you, where exactly did he come from? I've checked every database I have access to, and there's no record of anyone by that name. Naruto was quiet for a long moment, watching the sun set over the newly completed bridge. He told me once that he came from very far away, he said finally. Somewhere where the ocean goes on forever and people sail in ships the size of islands. That sounds like a fairy tale, Sakura said skeptically. Maybe, Naruto agreed. But Garp-sensei also said that the most important thing about fairy tales isn't whether they're real, it's whether they teach you something worth knowing. And what did his fairy tale teach you? Naruto's smile was bright as the setting sun. That no matter where you come from or what people expect from you, you can always choose to be strong enough to protect the things that matter. As if summoned by their conversation, Tazuna approached with a bottle of sake and a proposal that would change everything. We've decided what to call it, the old bridge builder announced, gesturing toward their completed work. The Great Naruto Bridge. What? Naruto blinked in surprise. But I didn't, you guys did all the work. Kid, Tazuna laughed, you defeated a demon, scattered an army, and convinced 2 of the most dangerous criminals in the world to become construction workers. If that doesn't earn you a bridge, I don't know what does. As the villagers cheered and the sun dipped below the horizon, Team 7 prepared for their journey back to Konoha. They left behind more than just a completed bridge. They left behind proof that sometimes overwhelming strength could be used to build rather than destroy. But more importantly, they left behind the first real evidence of what Uzumaki Naruto was becoming. And in the hidden villages of the ninja world, certain people were beginning to take notice. The return home, the journey back to Konoha, was markedly different from their trip to Wave Country. Where before they had traveled as a standard genin team with their jounin instructor, they now moved with the confidence of a unit that had seen real combat and emerged victorious. Sasuke was quieter than usual, processing what he'd witnessed. The gap between him and Naruto had become impossible to ignore, but instead of the usual frustration, he found himself genuinely curious about the source of his teammates' power. Sakura had started asking detailed questions about training methods and physical conditioning, topics that would have bored her to tears just weeks earlier. And Kakashi was writing a very long, very detailed mission report in his head. "Naruto," he said as they crested the final hill before Konoha came into view, "when we get back, the Hokage is going to want a full debrief." "Makes sense," Naruto replied. "It was a pretty weird mission. That's one way to put it." Kakashi studied his student carefully. "He's also going to want to meet this Garp who trained you. That might be tough. Garp-sensei doesn't really do official meetings. Says they're boring and cut into training time." "I see." Kakashi made a mental note to inform the Anbu surveillance teams that they should probably approach Training Ground 44 very carefully from now on. "Well, I suppose we'll cross that bridge when we come to it." "Speaking of bridges," Sakura said with a grin, "I can't wait to tell everyone back home that we have a bridge named after our teammate." "Please don't," Naruto groaned. "It's embarrassing enough already." "Are you kidding? It's amazing." Sakura's enthusiasm was infectious. "We're 12 years old and we already have a major infrastructure project named after one of us." As they approached Konoha's gates, Naruto felt a strange mix of emotions. He was proud of what they'd accomplished, grateful for his teammates, and eager to tell Garp about their adventures. But he was also aware that something had changed during their time in Wave Country. The casual way he'd handled Zabuza, the effortless defeat of Gateau's army, the bridge named in his honor, it all added up to something he wasn't quite ready to face. He was no longer just another genin. He was becoming something the ninja world hadn't seen in a very long time, a force of nature. And in the shadows of Konoha, certain individuals were already making plans to either recruit that force or eliminate it. "Absolutely not!" The third Hokage's declaration echoed through his office as he set down Kakashi's mission report, his weathered face set in firm lines. The document before him read more like a collection of folklore than an actual mission briefing. "With respect, Hokage-sama," Kakashi said carefully, "they're ready." "Ready?" Hiruzen's pipe trembled slightly in his grip. "Kakashi, according to your report, Naruto single-handedly defeated an A-rank missing nin, destroyed an army of mercenaries with a hand clap, and convinced one of the 7 ninja swordsmen to become a construction worker. That doesn't sound like ready, that sounds like terrifying. Which is exactly why they need to participate in the Chunin exams," Kakashi countered. "Naruto's strength is growing beyond anything we can properly evaluate here in the village. We need to see how he measures against international competition." From their positions standing at attention, Team 7 listened to the debate with varying degrees of interest. Sasuke was eager. The Chunin exams represented his chance to test himself against the strongest genin from other villages. Sakura was nervous but determined, knowing her teammates would carry her if necessary. Naruto was doing wall sits against the office window, apparently incapable of remaining motionless during long conversations. "The boy is 12 years old," Hiruzen said, gesturing toward Naruto, "regardless of his unusual training. The Chunin exams are designed to test mature ninja ready for battlefield command." 147, Naruto counted under his breath. 148. "He defeated Mamachi Zabuza in single combat," Kakashi pointed out. "I'm not sure physical age is the limiting factor here." "That's precisely what worries me," Hiruzen's voice dropped. "The Chunin exams aren't just about individual strength, Kakashi. They're about politics, diplomacy, intelligence gathering. What happens when other villages see what Naruto is capable of?" "They'll realize that Konoha has produced something unprecedented," Kakashi replied. "And they'll think twice before considering us weak, or they'll band together to eliminate what they perceive as a threat." Hiruzen stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the village below. Power without wisdom is dangerous, Kakashi. And power of this magnitude, 193, 194. Hokage-sama, Naruto said, finally abandoning his exercise to face the older man directly. Garp-sensei always taught me that hiding from challenges just makes you weaker in the long run. Hiruzen turned to study the boy who had somehow become the center of his greatest concerns. And what else did this Garp teach you? That being strong means taking responsibility for that strength, Naruto replied without hesitation. If I'm really as powerful as everyone keeps saying, then shouldn't I be using that power to help Konoha? To prove that we're worth respecting instead of attacking? The third Hokage was quiet for a long moment, weighing the boy's words against his own fears. Finally, he sighed deeply. Very well. Team 7 is approved for the Chunin exams. His gaze hardened. But understand this, Naruto, the moment you participate, you become a representative of this village. Your actions will reflect on all of us. I understand, old man, Naruto said with a grin. Don't worry, I won't let you down. As Team 7 filed out of the office to begin their preparations, Hiruzen couldn't shake the feeling that he just made a decision that would change everything. He was more right than he knew. The Forest of Death redefined the second stage of the Chunin exams should have been a grueling test of survival, stealth, and teamwork. For most of the participating teams, it was exactly that. For Team 7, it turned into something more resembling a nature walk with occasional interruptions. Earth Scroll, Naruto announced, holding up the document they'd taken from a team of Rain Genin who had made the mistake of trying to ambush them. That makes 3 Earth Scrolls and 1 Heaven Scroll. We only need one of each to pass, Sakura pointed out, studying their map of the Forest of Death. We could head to the tower now. But there are still teams out there who need help, Naruto replied, tucking the scroll away. Garp-sensei always said that if you finish your own challenges early, you should help others finish theirs. Sasuke looked skeptical. These are supposed to be our competitors. Why would we help them? Because they're people, Naruto said simply, and people are worth helping. Before Sasuke could respond, the trees around them exploded outward as something massive crashed through the forest canopy. Team 7 scattered as a giant snake, easily 50 feet long, slammed into the ground where they'd been standing. Well, well, a sibilant voice echoed from the snake's back. What have we here? The figure that emerged from the serpent's coils was pale, serpentine, and radiated malevolent power that made the very air feel poisonous. Golden eyes fixed on the 3 genin with predatory interest. Orochimaru, Sasuke breathed, recognition and terror warring in his voice. Very good, Sasuke-kun, the Sannin purred. I've been looking forward to meeting you and your interesting teammates. Those golden eyes lingered on Naruto with unmistakable fascination. Particularly you, young Uzumaki. The reports of your capabilities have been most intriguing. Reports? Naruto asked, genuinely curious despite the obvious danger. Oh yes, a genin who can defeat Jounin-level opponents through pure physical prowess, who can shatter techniques with his bare hands. You've created quite a stir in certain circles. Orochimaru's smile was all teeth and malice. I simply had to see for myself whether the stories were true. Well, Naruto said, rolling his shoulders to loosen up, Garp-sensei always said that the best way to answer questions is with a demonstration. The Sannin's surprise what followed was unlike any encounter in Orochimaru's considerable experience. The Snake Sannin was accustomed to being the predator in any confrontation, faster, stronger, more experienced than his opponents. He had faced down armies, battled legendary ninja, and emerged victorious from conflicts that would have destroyed lesser men. None of that prepared him for fighting someone who treated his most devastating attacks like mild annoyances. Orochimaru's first strike was a classic, extending his neck to impossible lengths while his fangs dripped with paralytic venom. It was a technique that had ended countless battles before they could truly begin. Naruto caught his head in midair like he was grabbing a particularly aggressive garden snake. Huh? The blonde observed, studying Orochimaru's shocked expression from inches away. That's a neat trick, kind of gross though. He flicked his wrist, and the legendary Sannin went spinning through the air to crash through 3 massive trees before coming to rest in a crater that definitely hadn't been there moments before. Impossible, Orochimaru gasped, extracting himself from the wreckage. No genin should possess that level of physical strength. Garp-sensei says there's no such thing as should when it comes to training, Naruto replied. There's only what you're willing to work for. Orochimaru's eyes narrowed dangerously. If brute force wouldn't work, perhaps a more elegant approach was called for. Hidden shadow snake hands, he hissed, and dozens of serpents erupted from his sleeves, each one moving with deadly precision toward vital points on Naruto's body. Naruto clapped his hands together once. The shockwave that followed turned every single snake into what could generously be described as snake confetti. Orochimaru, caught in the blast radius, found himself embedded in yet another tree, this one crackling ominously from the impact. You know, Naruto said conversationally, you're tougher than most people I've fought. Usually they stay down after the first hit. Most people, Orochimaru snarled, peeling himself away from the splintered wood, haven't lived for decades perfecting the art of not dying. His form began to shift and change as he entered his true combat mode, skin becoming scaled, eyes becoming even more serpentine, chakra taking on a quality that made reality itself seem to recoil. Now, he hissed, let me show you what real power looks like. The technique he unleashed next was one of his most forbidden, a jutsu that turned the very ground into a writhing mass of venomous serpents, each one capable of killing with a single bite. It was an area of effect attack designed to overwhelm even the most skilled opponents through sheer numbers. Naruto looked at the approaching wall of death and nodded appreciatively. That's actually really impressive, he said. Garp-sensei would like the tactical thinking behind it. Then he disappeared. Not through any jutsu or special technique, just pure, overwhelming speed. One moment he was standing in the path of 1,000 venomous serpents, the next he was directly in front of Orochimaru with his fist drawn back. Galaxy impact, he shouted, and the punch that followed contained enough force to level a city block. Orochimaru barely managed to substitute himself with a snake clone before the attack landed. The clone, the summoned serpents, and a significant portion of the surrounding forest simply ceased to exist. When the dust settled, the snake Sannin found himself perched in a tree a quarter-mile away, staring at the perfectly circular crater where he'd been standing moments before. What, he whispered to himself, in the name of the Sage of Six Paths is that boy? The curse marks failure from his position of relative safety. Orochimaru reassessed the situation. Direct confrontation was clearly not an option. The boy's physical capabilities exceeded anything he'd encountered outside of the legendary ninja of previous generations. But perhaps a more subtle approach would yield better results. The curse mark was his masterpiece, a technique that marked promising ninja for future recruitment while simultaneously granting them power beyond their normal limits. If he could mark the Uzumaki boy, perhaps he could study the source of his incredible strength. Orochimaru's neck extended once again, but this time he aimed not for a killing blow but for a marking bite. His fangs, charged with the cursed chakra that would bind Naruto to his will, pierced the boy's skin just above his shoulder. For exactly 3 seconds, Orochimaru thought he had succeeded. Then Naruto's immune system, conditioned by 3 years of Garp's training supplements, which had included everything from Sea King venom to concentrated willpower, kicked in. The curse mark didn't just fail to take hold, it was actively rejected by Naruto's body like a virus encountering the world's most aggressive antibodies. The cursed chakra was neutralized, absorbed, and converted into pure physical energy that made Naruto's already considerable strength surge even higher. Whoa, Naruto said, flexing experimentally. That felt weird. What was that supposed to do? Orochimaru stared in absolute disbelief as his most reliable technique not only failed but actually made his opponent stronger. The curse mark, he whispered, it didn't work. Is that what you called it? Naruto rubbed his shoulder where the bite marks were already healing. Garp-sensei always said that curses only work on people who believe in them. The implications of what he just witnessed hit Orochimaru like a physical blow. If the boy was immune to his most sophisticated techniques, if his strength was beyond conventional measurement, if he could treat legendary jutsu like party tricks, what exactly had Konoha created? And more importantly, how could he get his hands on whatever had created it? This isn't over, young Uzumaki, Orochimaru hissed as he began his retreat. I will learn the source of your power. And when you do, you'll probably be disappointed, Naruto called after him. It's just training, hard work, and lots of getting punched by someone who loves you enough to make you stronger. As the snake Sannin disappeared into the forest depths, Naruto turned back to his teammates, who had watched the entire encounter in stunned silence. "Well," he said cheerfully, "that was fun. Should we go help some more teams find their scrolls?" Sasuke and Sakura exchanged a look that spoke volumes. Their teammate had just fought one of the legendary Sannin to a standstill while having a casual conversation about training philosophy. The Chunin exams were going to be very interesting indeed. The tower's revelation, the central tower of the Forest of Death, had seen many dramatic arrivals over the years, but few quite like Team 7's entrance. They walked through the doors exactly 4 hours and 37 minutes after the second stage had begun, carrying not only their required scrolls but also a collection of injured genin they'd rescued along the way. "Team 7 from Konoha," Anko Mitarashi announced, checking them off her list with barely concealed amazement. "Fastest completion time in Chunin exam history." "We had help," Naruto said, gesturing to the 8 other genin they'd essentially carried to safety. "Teamwork makes everything easier." Anko studied the group of rescued ninja teams from sand, grass, and rain who looked at Naruto with expressions ranging from awe to terror. Whatever had happened in that forest, it had left a lasting impression. "Uzumaki," she said quietly, pulling him aside while medics tended to the injured, "I need to know, did you encounter anyone?" "Unusual out there? Define unusual," Naruto replied. "There was this guy with really long hair and a snake thing going on, seemed to know Sasuke." Anko's face went pale. "Describe him." Pale, creepy smile extended his neck like a rubber band. "Pretty tough fighter, actually. Lasted almost 5 minutes before he gave up and ran away." 5 minutes, Anko thought desperately. "Orochimaru lasted 5 minutes against a 12-year-old and then retreated. Did he do anything to you? Any strange techniques?" Naruto rubbed his shoulder thoughtfully. "He bit me, but it didn't really do anything. Felt kind of tingly for a second, then nothing." Before Anko could process the implications of that statement, the third Hokage's voice echoed through the tower's central chamber. "Congratulations to all teams who have successfully completed the second stage of the Chunin exams," Hiruzen announced from the viewing platform. "However, due to the large number of successful candidates, we will now hold preliminary matches to determine who advances to the final stage." A murmur ran through the assembled genin. This was unexpected. Usually, the preliminaries were held only when the number of successful teams exceeded expectations by a significant margin. "The preliminaries will be single elimination matches," the Hokage continued. "Winners advance to the finals, which will be held in 1 month's time before an audience of nobles and dignitaries from across the ninja world." Gecko, the proctor for the preliminary rounds, stepped forward with his characteristic cough. "If anyone feels they cannot continue due to injury or exhaustion, now is the time to withdraw." Several hands rose immediately, genin who had barely survived the Forest of Death and knew they had no chance in single combat. "Anyone else?" Hate asked. The remaining candidates looked around at each other, making silent calculations about their chances. Then every eye in the room gradually turned toward Naruto, who was doing stretching exercises against the arena wall. "I'm good," he said cheerfully when he noticed the attention. "Garp-sensei always said that real training doesn't start until you're already tired." The first revelation, the electronic board flickered to life, displaying the first match. Uzumaki Naruto vs Hyuga Neji. A collective intake of breath echoed through the viewing platform. The matchup was immediately recognized as significant, the supposed dead last of his academy class against the prodigal genius of the Hyuga clan's branch family. "This should be interesting," Kakashi murmured to himself, though he was honestly more concerned for Neji than for his student. Down in the arena, Naruto faced off against his opponent with relaxed confidence. Neji Hyuga stood in perfect form, his Byakugan already activated and revealing chakra pathways that seemed to burn with inner fire. "Uzumaki Naruto," Neji said, his voice carrying the cold certainty of absolute conviction, "you should forfeit now. Your defeat is inevitable." "Inevitable?" Naruto tilted his head curiously. "That's a big word, what's it mean?" It means that fate has already decided the outcome of this match, Neji replied, settling into the traditional gentle fist stance. You are a failure born to fail. I am a genius, destined for greatness. The gap between us cannot be bridged by effort or determination. Naruto was quiet for a long moment, studying the older boy with genuine interest. You know, he said finally, Garp-sensei told me I'd meet people like you eventually. People like me? People who think that where you start determines where you finish. Naruto's expression grew serious. People who use the word destiny as an excuse to stop trying. Neji's eyes flashed with anger. Destiny is not an excuse, it is reality. The weak are born weak and die weak. The strong are born strong and achieve greatness. This is the natural order. Natural order. Naruto's voice took on a quality that reminded several of the watching Jounin uncomfortably of Garp's more serious moments. Let me tell you what Garp-sensei taught me about natural order. He dropped into a combat stance that was unlike anything in the standard ninja curriculum, feet planted wide, center of gravity low, every muscle in his body coiled for explosive action. The natural order is that everyone starts weak, everyone gets hurt, everyone fails. His eyes met Neji's directly, but some people choose to get stronger anyway. Some people decide that their starting point doesn't determine their ending point. Pretty words, Neji sneered, but words won't change fate. You're right, Naruto agreed. Words won't. But this will? The philosophy of fists, what followed, was less a fight than a philosophical debate conducted through combat techniques. Neji opened with the gentle fist style that had made the Hyuga clan famous throughout the ninja world. His strikes were precise, targeting chakra points with surgical accuracy designed to disable his opponent's ability to use jutsu. Each attack met empty air as Naruto moved with fluid grace, dodging by margins so small they seemed impossible. The blonde genin's footwork was flawless, his timing perfect, his understanding of combat distance beyond anything Neji had ever encountered. Impossible, Neji breathed as his 15th consecutive strike missed its target. My Byakugan sees everything. I can predict your movements before you make them. Can you? Naruto asked, genuinely curious. Because Garp-sensei taught me that prediction only works if your opponent moves the way you expect them to. To demonstrate his point, Naruto did something that should have been physically impossible. He changed direction in midair during a dodge, defying momentum and gravity through sheer muscular control. Neji's next strike, perfectly aimed for where Naruto should have been, hit nothing but air. The Byakugan shows you chakra pathways and physical movements, Naruto continued as he continued his impossible dance around Neji's increasingly desperate attacks. But it can't show you will, and it can't show you what happens when someone refuses to accept limitations. Everyone has limitations, Neji snarled, abandoning precision for raw aggression. That is what fate means, the boundaries that cannot be crossed. Is that what you tell yourself? Naruto's voice carried a note of genuine sadness. When you go to sleep at night, is that how you justify giving up on your dreams? The question hit Neji like a physical blow. For just a moment, his perfect, gentle fist form wavered, and in that moment of uncertainty, Naruto moved, not to attack but to demonstrate. Naruto placed his palm gently against Neji's chest, not a strike, just a touch. But the message was unmistakable. I could have hit you. I chose not to. Your technique is perfect, Naruto said quietly. Your form is flawless. Your understanding of combat theory is probably better than mine. He stepped back, giving Neji space to recover. But you're fighting your own limitations instead of fighting me. What are you talking about? You keep saying that people can't change their fate, Naruto explained. But you're a branch family member fighting in the Chunin exams. Isn't that already changing your fate? Isn't standing here right now proof that you don't have to accept the role other people picked for you? Neji stared at him in shock. In all his years of philosophical certainty, no one had ever turned his own arguments against him quite so effectively. That's different. I'm still bound by the curse seal. You're still making choices, Naruto interrupted. Every day you choose whether to get stronger or stay the same. You choose whether to help people or hurt them. You choose whether to give up or keep fighting. His eyes blazed with conviction. And right now, you're choosing to believe that you're powerless because believing in your own strength is scarier than accepting defeat. The gentle revolution, the arena had gone completely silent as Naruto's words echoed through the chamber. Even the Jounin on the viewing platform found themselves leaning forward, captivated by the philosophical battle playing out below. Neji stood frozen, his Byakugan still active but his fighting stance forgotten. Everything he'd built his identity around, fate, destiny, the unchangeable nature of the world, was being systematically dismantled by a boy who shouldn't have had the wisdom to understand such concepts. "You want to talk about fate?" Naruto continued, his voice growing stronger. "Let me tell you about my fate. I was born with a demon sealed inside me. The entire village hated me before I was old enough to understand why. I was supposed to be alone, afraid, and weak for my entire life." He gestured around the arena, where dozens of elite ninja watched him with expressions of respect and admiration. "Does this look like I accepted that fate to you? But you're different," Neji protested weakly. "You have special power, unique advantages." "I have scars," Naruto said simply. "I have calluses from hitting things until my hands bled. I have muscles built from carrying weights that should have crushed me. I have knowledge earned by getting knocked down and getting back up again." His smile was gentle but unwavering. "The only thing special about me is that I had someone who believed I could be stronger, and I chose to believe him." Neji looked at his own hands, soft from a life of relative privilege, unmarked by the kind of brutal training Naruto described. When was the last time he'd pushed himself past his limits? When was the last time he'd chosen growth over comfort? "I don't understand," he whispered. "If fate isn't real, if we can all change our circumstances through effort alone, then why do bad things still happen?" Naruto finished. "Why are people still trapped in situations they didn't choose?" Neji nodded. "Because changing your fate is hard," Naruto said. "Harder than accepting it, harder than complaining about it, harder than using it as an excuse." He extended his hand toward Neji. "But that doesn't mean it's impossible, it just means you need help." Neji stared at the offered hand for a long moment. Around them, the arena waited in breathless silence for his decision. Finally, slowly, he reached out and grasped Naruto's hand. "I forfeit," he said quietly. The arena erupted in surprised murmurs, but Neji's voice carried clearly as he continued. "I forfeit this match because I've already learned what I came here to learn." He looked directly at Naruto, his Byakugan finally deactivating, "and because I think I have some training to catch up on." Hate, clearly confused by the turn of events, raised his hand anyway. "Winner by forfeit, Uzumaki Naruto." But as the two genin walked off the arena floor together, everyone present understood that something more significant than a simple match had just occurred. They'd witnessed the birth of a new philosophy, one that said destiny was just another word for giving up, and that strength was always a choice. The ripple effect in the viewing platform above, the watching ninja processed what they'd just seen with varying degrees of amazement and concern. "Did that boy just convert one of our most promising genin through philosophical debate?" asked one of the Jounin instructors. "He defeated Orochimaru's ideology more effectively than we've ever defeated Orochimaru himself," Kakashi replied thoughtfully. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" Before anyone could answer, the electronic board flickered again, displaying the next match. But everyone's attention remained fixed on the blonde genin who had somehow turned a combat tournament into a lesson in personal growth. In the competitors' area, Sasuke watched Naruto's retreating form with new understanding. He'd always seen his teammate as someone blessed with natural talent, but now he realized the truth was far more complex and far more inspiring. Strength wasn't something you were born with, it was something you earned, and if Naruto could do it, the next challenge, impressive work out there, a gravelly voice said as Naruto settled in to watch the remaining matches. "Though I think you could have ended it faster if you'd really tried." Naruto turned to find a man he didn't recognize, middle-aged, wearing the standard Jounin vest, but carrying himself with an authority that suggested he was more than just another instructor. "Garp-sensei always taught me that the fastest way to win isn't always the best way," Naruto replied. "Sometimes it's more important to help your opponent understand something than it is to beat them up." "Wise teacher, this Garp," the man mused. I'd be very interested to meet him sometime. And you are, Might Guy, the man replied with a brilliant smile. And I have the feeling we're going to be very good friends, Uzumaki Naruto. As Guy wandered off to enthusiastically discuss the flames of youth with anyone who would listen, Naruto settled back to watch the next match, unaware that his demonstration had just earned him both powerful allies and dangerous enemies. The finals were still a month away, but the real competition, the one for the future of the ninja world, had already begun. The month of growth, the month between the preliminaries and the finals, had been unlike any training period in Konoha's history. While other villages sent their genin to learn new techniques and refine their skills, Team 7 had embarked on what could only be described as a philosophical revolution. Jiraiya had arrived expecting to find a promising young Jinchuriki in need of guidance. Instead, he'd encountered something that challenged every assumption he'd ever made about training and power. So, the Toad Sage said, watching Naruto effortlessly lift a boulder the size of a small building, "Your teacher Garp never taught you any actual jutsu?" "He taught me the most important jutsu of all," Naruto replied, switching the boulder to his other hand like it weighed nothing. "How to make my body strong enough that I don't need complicated techniques. But surely you'd benefit from learning the Rasengan or summoning techniques, or Garp-sensei always said that if you need a fancy technique to win, you weren't strong enough to deserve victory in the first place." Naruto set the boulder down carefully. "He taught me that overwhelming strength and unshakable will can solve any problem." Jiraiya stared at the casual display of power. The boy was lifting weights that would challenge most jounin, and he was doing it as a warm-up exercise. "What about strategy, tactical thinking, the mental aspects of combat?" "Oh, he taught me those too," Naruto said cheerfully. "Want to see?" Before Jiraiya could respond, Naruto had vanished. Not through any teleportation technique, just pure speed. The Toad Sage spun around, trying to locate his student, only to find Naruto standing exactly where he'd started. "You were thinking about substituting with that log behind you," Naruto observed. "Then you were going to use Earth Style to create an opening for a surprise attack from underground. After that, depending on how I responded, you'd either escalate to summoning techniques or try to create distance for a longer range battle." Jiraiya's jaw dropped. "How could you possibly know? Garp-sensei taught me to read opponents, body language, micro-expressions, weight distribution, breathing patterns." Naruto shrugged. "Plus, you've been unconsciously positioning yourself near that log since we started talking. It was pretty obvious." This boy, Jiraiya thought desperately, doesn't need training. He needs an opponent who can actually challenge him. The arena awaits. The day of the finals dawned bright and clear, with the arena packed to capacity with nobles, dignitaries, and ninja from every major village. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Everyone had heard rumors about the blonde genin who had defeated one of the legendary Sannin and converted enemies through philosophy alone. In the competitors' staging area, Naruto sat quietly while chaos swirled around him. Other finalists were making last-minute preparations, psyching themselves up, or dealing with pre-competition nerves. Naruto was reading a book. "What's that?" Sakura asked, genuinely curious. "The Art of War by someone named Sun Tzu," Naruto replied without looking up. "Garp-sensei gave it to me. Says that understanding strategy is just as important as being strong." "And what's it teaching you?" "That the best victories are the ones where nobody has to get seriously hurt," Naruto said thoughtfully. "And that sometimes the most powerful technique is knowing when not to use your power at all." Before Sakura could ask what he meant, Heiei's voice echoed through the arena speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final stage of the Chunin exams. Our first match, Uzumaki Naruto versus Hyuga Hinata." The gentle confrontation, the matchup, was immediately recognized as unusual. Hinata Hyuga, the shy heir to the main branch of her clan, against the boy who had philosophically revolutionized her cousin just a month earlier. As they faced each other in the center of the arena, Hinata's nervousness was obvious to everyone present. She'd been training harder than ever since witnessing Naruto's match with Neji, but the gap between them seemed impossible to bridge. "Hinata," Naruto said gently, "are you sure you want to do this?" "I don't want to hurt you." I have to try, Naruto-kun," she replied, her voice barely audible. "If I don't push myself now, I'll never grow stronger." Naruto studied her for a long moment, then nodded with genuine respect. Garp-sensei always said that courage isn't about not being scared, it's about being scared and fighting anyway. Begin, Hate announced. What followed was unlike any match in Chunin exam history. Instead of immediately overwhelming his opponent, Naruto began moving in a pattern that forced Hinata to respond with her best techniques. Every dodge, every counterattack, every defensive maneuver was calculated to draw out her full potential. To the watching crowd, it looked like an intense, evenly matched battle. To the experienced ninja in the audience, it was clear that Naruto was essentially conducting a masterclass in combat while simultaneously giving Hinata the fight of her life. 8 trigrams 32 palms, Hinata called out, unleashing the most advanced technique she'd ever mastered. Naruto moved through her attack like water, avoiding every strike by the narrowest possible margin while simultaneously positioning himself to force her into even more complex combinations. Good, he called out as she transitioned into a different stance. But remember what your cousin learned, don't fight your limitations, fight through them. For 15 minutes, the two genin danced around each other in a display of technical skill that had the crowd on their feet. Hinata pushed herself further than she'd ever gone before, while Naruto demonstrated that true strength sometimes meant holding back just enough to help others discover their own power. Finally, when Hinata had exhausted every technique she knew and pushed herself to her absolute limit, Naruto stepped forward and gently placed his palm against her shoulder. "That was amazing," he said sincerely. "You've gotten so much stronger." Hinata, breathing heavily but glowing with pride at having given everything she had, smiled brighter than anyone had ever seen. "I forfeit," she said clearly, her voice carrying across the entire arena. "I came here to prove I could push my limits, and I did. Thank you, Naruto-kun." As the crowd erupted in appreciation for what they'd witnessed, Naruto helped Hinata off the arena floor with the same gentle courtesy he'd shown Neji. "The real challenge next match," Hate announced. "Uzumaki Naruto vs. Gaara of the Desert." The atmosphere in the arena immediately shifted as Gaara descended to the fighting floor. Where Hinata had been nervous but determined, Gaara radiated an aura of barely contained violence that made even the elite ninja in the viewing platforms uncomfortable. "Finally," Gaara said, his voice carrying the promise of violence, "someone who might actually bleed when I kill them." Naruto studied the red-haired boy with genuine interest. Unlike his previous opponents, Gaara felt genuinely dangerous, not just physically powerful, but carrying a darkness that reminded Naruto uncomfortably of his own past. "You know," Naruto said conversationally, "you remind me of myself a few years ago." "What?" Gaara's killing intent spiked. Angry at everyone, convinced that the only way to prove you exist is to hurt people, Naruto's expression grew serious. "Garp-sensei helped me figure out that the anger was really just pain in disguise." "Don't pretend to understand me," Gaara snarled, and sand began swirling around him like a living thing. "I exist to kill. I exist to prove my strength by destroying others." "No," Naruto said quietly, "you exist to be in pain. The killing is just how you try to make the pain stop." The monster's fury, what followed, was the most violent match in Chunin exam history. Gaara unleashed his full arsenal immediately, waves of sand moving with crushing force, techniques designed to bury and suffocate opponents, attacks that turned the entire arena floor into a shifting death trap. And Naruto met each attack with calm efficiency. When sand tried to grab his legs, he simply broke free through raw strength. When crushing waves threatened to overwhelm him, he dispersed them with precisely calculated strikes. When Gaara formed his ultimate defense, a sphere of absolute protection made from sand harder than steel, Naruto walked up to it and knocked politely. "Can we talk?" he asked through the shell. "Die," came the muffled response, and spikes of sand erupted from every surface of the sphere. Naruto dodged casually. "I'm guessing that's a no." The fight escalated rapidly as Gaara's techniques grew more desperate and more destructive. Sand clones, underground attacks, even partial transformations into his tailed beast form. Nothing seemed to faze the blonde genin who treated each escalation like a new puzzle to solve. Finally, when Gaara had exhausted his conventional techniques and begun drawing on Shukaku's power directly, Naruto made his move. He didn't attack the sand. He didn't try to overpower the defenses. Instead, he did something that shocked everyone watching. He sat down. "What are you doing?" Gaara screamed from within his sand armor, now partially transformed into his tailed beast form. "Waiting," Naruto replied calmly. "Garp-sensei taught me that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is show someone that you're not afraid of them." "I'll kill you, probably," Naruto agreed, "but you'll still be in pain afterward. And you'll still be alone." The words hit Gaara like a physical blow. The partial transformation flickered, his sand defenses wavering. What did you say?" "You heard me." Naruto's voice was gentle but unwavering. "You think that if you're scary enough, strong enough, dangerous enough, people will leave you alone and the pain will stop. But it doesn't work that way." He gestured around the arena, where thousands of people watched with expressions of fear and disgust directed at Gaara's monstrous form. "Look around, you've proven you're dangerous, you've proven you can hurt people. Are you any less alone?" The truth of monsters Gaara's transformation began to recede as Naruto's words sank in. For the first time in years, he was hearing someone speak to his pain rather than his power. "I don't understand," Gaara whispered. "If being strong doesn't make the loneliness stop, then what does?" "Being strong for other people instead of strong against them," Naruto replied. "Garp-sensei taught me that the strongest people are the ones who use their power to protect others, not to prove themselves. But everyone hates me, everyone fears me." "Everyone feared me too," Naruto said simply. "Right up until I gave them a reason not to." He stood up slowly, keeping his hands visible and non-threatening. "You want to know what real strength looks like? Real strength is choosing not to hurt people even when you're angry. Real strength is protecting people even when they don't deserve it. Real strength is being the person you needed when you were at your worst." Gaara stared at him in shock. No one had ever spoken to him like this, not as a monster to be contained or a weapon to be used, but as a person who was hurting and needed help. I don't know how to be that person," he admitted. "Neither did I," Naruto replied. "But Garp-sensei taught me that the best way to learn is to start trying, and if you mess up, you try again, and if you mess up again, you try again." He extended his hand toward Gaara just as he had with Neji a month earlier. "Want to try?" For a long moment, the arena held its breath. Then, slowly, Gaara reached out and took Naruto's hand. "I forfeit," he said quietly, "not because I can't win, but because I think I want to learn what it means to be strong the way you are." The invasion begins. It was at that moment, as the crowd erupted in confused but appreciative applause, that the invasion began. Feathers began falling from the sky, a genjutsu designed to put the civilian population to sleep while enemy forces moved into position. Sound Ninja, aided by Orochimaru's agents, launched their coordinated assault on Konoha. But they had not accounted for two things. First, Naruto's resistance to genjutsu techniques, honed by years of Garp's mental conditioning exercises, meant that the sleeping technique had no effect on him whatsoever. Second, Gaara's newfound desire to protect others rather than destroy them meant that Tsunagakure's most powerful weapon was no longer on their side. Garp-sensei always said that the best way to handle bullies is to hit them so hard that all the other bullies decide to find easier targets, Naruto observed, watching enemy ninja pour into the arena. "What do we do?" Gaara asked, his sand already moving to form defensive barriers around the sleeping civilians. Naruto's smile was sharp as a blade and twice as dangerous. "We remind everyone why you don't mess with people we care about." The defense of Konoha, what followed, redefined the concept of overwhelming force. Naruto moved through the invading forces like a natural disaster given human form. Enemy ninja who had trained for years in preparation for this assault found themselves facing an opponent who treated their most devastating techniques like minor inconveniences. Sound Ninja, who specialized in sonic attacks, discovered that someone conditioned to withstand Garp's motivational shouting was essentially immune to their primary weapons. Sand Ninja, who relied on defensive techniques, learned that no defense was absolute when faced with sufficient force applied correctly. But most importantly, the watching ninja of Konoha saw something that changed their understanding of what their village was capable of. They saw Uzumaki Naruto, the boy they dismissed, ignored, or actively despised, standing as the final line of defense between their home and destruction. And they saw him win. Not through trickery, not through special techniques, not through borrowing power from the demons sealed within him. Through pure, overwhelming, undeniable strength earned through training, dedication, and an unshakable commitment to protecting others. The snake's final gambit as the invasion crumbled around him, Orochimaru made one last desperate play. If he couldn't capture Sasuke, couldn't mark Naruto, couldn't destroy Konoha through conventional means, then perhaps he could at least eliminate the one factor that had disrupted all his carefully laid plans. The snake Sannin emerged from his hiding place in a burst of killing intent so overwhelming that several of the watching Jounin actually took steps backward. "You," he hissed at Naruto, who was helping evacuate injured civilians. "You've ruined everything." "Have I?" Naruto asked mildly, not even looking up from the injured child he was tending to. "That's too bad, though to be honest, your plans kind of sucked anyway." "Enough!" Orochimaru's form began to shift and change, taking on aspects that were more serpent than human. "I'll show you what happens when you interfere with forces beyond your comprehension." "Forces beyond my comprehension?" Naruto finally looked up, and there was something in his eyes that made even Orochimaru hesitate. "You mean like the force that made Garp-sensei strong enough to punch through mountains? Or the force that turned a hated, lonely kid into someone people look up to?" He stood slowly, and his presence seemed to fill the entire arena. "Those forces aren't beyond my comprehension," he continued. "They live inside everyone who decides that tomorrow can be better than today." The punch that followed was not Naruto's strongest, it was not his fastest, it was not his most technically perfect, but it was delivered with the absolute conviction of someone who knew exactly what he was fighting for. Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin, master of forbidden techniques and wielder of power that had terrorized nations, flew backward through the air to crash through the arena wall and land in an unconscious heap 3 blocks away. In the stunned silence that followed, Naruto turned to address the crowd of ninja, nobles, and civilians who had witnessed the entire battle. "Garp-sensei always taught me that real strength isn't about being the strongest person in the room," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the arena. "It's about making sure everyone in the room can become as strong as they need to be." He gestured toward Gaara, who was using his sand to carefully lift injured people to safety. Toward Neji, who was coordinating evacuation efforts with military precision. Toward Hinata, who was protecting a group of children with techniques that would have been impossible for her just a month earlier. "That's what Konoha really is," Naruto continued. "Not the strongest village, but the village that makes everyone stronger." As the crowd erupted in cheers that could probably be heard in the next country, Hiruzen Sarutobi realized that he wasn't just looking at the winner of the Chunin exams. He was looking at the future. 5 years later, the office of the 5th Hokage was a study in controlled chaos. Papers covered every available surface, mission reports formed precarious towers on the desk, and somewhere beneath it all, Tsunade Senju tried to maintain some semblance of order over the most prosperous period in Konoha's history. "The graduation rates from the academy have increased by 300%, Shizune reported, consulting her ever-present clipboard. "Applications for advanced training programs are up even more. And the requests for Konoha ninja on international missions have tripled. All because of one boy's philosophy," Tsunade mused, signing another trade agreement. The document was from Sunigakure requesting joint training exercises. 5 years ago, such cooperation would have been unthinkable. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Uzumaki Naruto entered the office, though he had to duck slightly to fit through the doorway. 5 years of continued training under Garp's increasingly ridiculous regimens had added another 6 inches to his height and turned him into what could generously be described as a walking natural disaster with good intentions. "You wanted to see me, Granny Tsunade." "Don't call me Granny," Tsunade replied automatically, though without any real heat. "And yes, I have something for you." She held up a piece of paper that made Naruto's eyes widen. "Is that your promotion to Jounin effective immediately?" Tsunade's smile was genuine. "Congratulations. You're now officially the youngest Jounin in Konoha's history. But I never took the Chunin exam again after After you revolutionized our entire understanding of what ninja training could accomplish, Tsunade interrupted. After you inspired an entire generation to pursue strength through self-improvement rather than power through dominance. After you single-handedly changed the political landscape of the ninja world. She gestured toward the window, where the sounds of construction could be heard. Konoha was expanding at an unprecedented rate, with new training facilities being built to accommodate the influx of students from other villages who wanted to learn the Konoha way. I think we can skip the formalities. The ripple effect outside the Hokage Tower, the changes were visible everywhere. The streets bustled with ninja from every village, all drawn by stories of the training methods that had produced such remarkable results. The old divisions between villages were slowly breaking down as a new philosophy spread across the ninja world. In the academy training grounds, Uruka Yumino watched his latest class of students with amazement. These children, barely 8 years old, were already demonstrating physical capabilities that would have impressed Chunin from the previous generation. Remember, he called out as they practiced basic exercises, strength isn't about being better than others, it's about being better than you were yesterday. The phrase had become something of a motto throughout Konoha. It was written above the entrance to every training facility, carved into memorial stones, and whispered by parents to children who faced their own struggles. In Training Ground 7, Sasuke Uchiha sparred with his former teammate under Kakashi's watchful eye. The Uchiha had never managed to surpass Naruto in raw physical power, but he'd found something perhaps more valuable, a purpose that went beyond revenge. "Your form is getting better," Naruto observed as he casually deflected a technique that would have leveled a small building. "Garp-sensei would be proud of the progress you've made." "Speaking of Garp-sensei," Sasuke panted, stepping back to catch his breath, "where is he these days? I haven't seen him around the village in months." Naruto's expression grew thoughtful. "He said something about new students and bigger challenges. You know how he is about finding people who need help." The answer to Sasuke's question came that evening when Naruto was walking home from his training session. A familiar figure sat on the porch of his apartment. If sitting was the right word for someone who appeared to be doing one-handed push-ups while simultaneously reading what looked like a military strategy manual. "Garp-sensei," Naruto's face lit up with genuine joy. "I was wondering when you'd show up again." "Had to check on my greatest student," Garp replied, transitioning smoothly from his exercise to a standing position. "Plus, I heard you got promoted. About time, if you ask me." They sat together on the porch as the sun set over Konoha, watching the village settle into its evening routine. The sounds of training could still be heard from various facilities. The ninja world never truly rested anymore. "You know," Garp said after a comfortable silence, "when I first found you in that alley, I thought I was just saving one scared kid. And now I'm looking at someone who saved an entire world's way of thinking." Garp's voice carried a note of pride that made Naruto's chest warm. "You took everything I taught you and made it into something better, something that helps people instead of just making them stronger." "I had a good teacher," Naruto replied simply. "You had a good heart," Garp corrected. "I just gave you the tools to make it strong enough to change things." They watched a group of young ninja from various villages working together on a training exercise, their different headbands forgotten in the face of shared goals and mutual respect. "What's next for you?" Naruto asked. "More training, more students who need help," Garp chuckled, and the sound carried hints of adventures yet to come. "There's a whole multiverse out there, kid. Infinite worlds with infinite people who could use a little help figuring out that strength and kindness aren't opposites." "Multiverse?" Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Long story. Point is, there are always more people who need someone to believe in them. More kids sitting in alleys convinced they're worthless because the world told them so." Garp stood and stretched, his joints popping audibly. "Can't let that stand, can we?" The philosophy spreads as if to illustrate his point. A young girl from the hidden stone village approached their porch hesitantly. She couldn't have been more than 10, but she moved with the confidence of someone who had already learned valuable lessons about her own potential. "Excuse me," she said politely, "are you Uzumaki Naruto?" "That's me," Naruto replied with a smile. "What can I do for you?" "My sensei sent me to ask about your training methods. Our village wants to implement some of your techniques for building mental resilience." Naruto exchanged a glance with Garp, who nodded encouragingly. The most important thing to understand, Naruto said, settling into teaching mode, is that real strength comes from inside. Everything else, the physical training, the techniques, the power, it's all just ways to express what's already in your heart. The girl listened intently as Naruto explained the basic principles. That everyone starts from weakness, that growth requires consistent effort, that helping others become stronger was more important than proving your own superiority. "It sounds hard," she said when he finished. "The hardest things are usually the most worthwhile," Garp interjected. "But here's a secret, you don't have to do it alone. The strongest people in any world are the ones who lift each other up." As the girl ran off to share what she'd learned with her team, Garp began gathering his few possessions. "Time for me to go," he announced. "Got a ship to catch." "A ship? Interdimensional transport, don't ask me to explain the physics." Garp shouldered his pack, which appeared to contain nothing but dumbbells and protein supplements. "But before I go, I want you to have something." He pulled out a small, worn notebook and handed it to Naruto. The cover was unmarked, but the pages were filled with Garp's distinctive handwriting. "Everything I know about training, philosophy, and turning scared kids into heroes," he explained. "Consider it a graduation present." Naruto accepted the notebook with reverence, understanding that he was holding something infinitely precious. "Will I see you again?" he asked. "Kid," Garp's grin was as brilliant as the day they'd first met, "try and stop me. I'll always be around when someone needs to learn that they're stronger than they think they are." The new dawn as Garp disappeared into the evening shadows, not through any jutsu, just by being remarkably good at leaving when the dramatic moment called for it. Naruto opened the notebook to the first page. Written in Garp's bold handwriting was a single sentence that summarized everything the Marine had ever taught him. True strength is not the absence of weakness, but the courage to grow beyond it with love. Below that, in smaller text, was a note that made Naruto laugh out loud. "P.S. Don't forget to eat your vegetables. Heroes need proper nutrition." Naruto closed the notebook and looked out over Konoha one more time. Somewhere in the village, former enemies were training together. Former rivals were teaching each other new techniques. Former outcasts were discovering that they had always been worthy of love and respect. The philosophy that had started with one lonely boy and one determined Marine had become something larger than either of them could have imagined. It had become proof that the world could always be better than it was, as long as people were willing to work for it. And in villages across the ninja world, children who had never heard of Monkey D. Garp or Uzumaki Naruto were learning the same fundamental truth that had started it all, that everyone deserves a chance to become strong, that everyone deserves someone who believes in them, and that the best way to honor that belief is to pass it on to someone else who needs it. The final lesson years later, when Naruto became Hokage, at the unprecedented age of 21, elected by unanimous vote from both the village council and popular referendum, he would keep Garp's notebook in the top drawer of his desk. Whenever young ninja came to him with problems that seemed insurmountable, whenever the weight of leadership felt too heavy to bear, whenever the world seemed too broken to fix, he would open that notebook and remember the most important lesson his teacher had ever given him. That love and strength were not opposites but partners, and that with enough of both, any fate could be changed, any destiny could be rewritten, any future could be built. One person at a time, one choice at a time. One act of overwhelming, transformative love at a time. The end. From scared kid to youngest Hokage who changed the ninja world, Naruto's journey under Garp was legendary. What was your favorite moment? Naruto breaking Zabuza's sword or sending Orochimaru flying? Drop your thoughts below. Subscribe for more insane crossovers and let me know what you want next. Peace out.